if you look at the political revolutions that have gone on in this world, and you link them to those technical revolutions, I think you'll see some very interesting and frightening phenomena occurring in the world in which we're living now. We've been living with a political ideology over the last 50 years, neoliberalism, which in combination with the technology advances that have been made, I think, particularly if you just take social media, has put democracy at risk as a way of governing ourselves and on this planet. So technology, if it leaves behind the political and the social and those kinds of issues and does not take them into account, I think it can take us into a very dark place. So that's just one of the issues I have there. The second one is just quickly, he commented that, first of all, the vision of UI is to have a robot for everybody. And the implication was, because I refuse to own a cell phone, I don't have a robot, therefore I'm disadvantaged. I think one of the things we taught in leadership and people management was that, yes, connectedness is crucial. But what do we mean by connectedness? And I think if you look at the program itself and the social capital we've built in this program over 17 or 18 years, that was not built through talking to anybody on a cell phone. I don't have one. I had an interesting experience once. I sat down with a group of guys who invited me to come and have dinner with them in the program, and it just struck me. I thought, why have I been invited? I'm an old man, I'm a technophobe, why are they inviting me to come to these occasions? So I asked the question, and the answer was, you the connector. Now, your vision here is connection, but that connection has been done through countless coffees, beers, lunches, and various other phenomena, and it included, I think, a kind of excitement that you're never going to get through a cell phone. So I think we run the risk of ignoring some of the fundamental issues about humankind, social life, if we lose touch with the fact that we are human beings fundamentally, we are social beings fundamentally, and that the social society is a social construct, and it's a political construct. It's a right about us and about power and about those kinds of issues. And if we lose sight of that, I think technology can put us in a very difficult position.
Amanda, please, your thoughts and a bit of an introduction as to what organisational learning is from your capacity.
Yes, I don't feel quite like the token social scientist anymore, so I tend to grab what I was the diversity and inclusion. Organisational learning is an interesting one because sometimes it's about an organisation learn, sometimes it's about the individuals. I think the discourse around these sorts of things, the fourth industrial revolution, is often about the individuals. What happens to us? Will we be automated out of a job? How will it disrupt us? Which I think is worthwhile. I kind of agree about revolution. I think that's a really interesting point. And I think about historical view, there's always a counter-revolution whenever there's a revolution. I think we're probably seeing some evidence of that now socially, this idea of the post-truth era. Disbelief, distrust in facts and institutions, people perhaps lacking some critical capacity in terms of critical ability in terms of what they're looking at. So I think that's going to be really interesting to watch. I don't agree that a revolution is necessarily an abrupt change. I think it can be, but I think a lot of what we're witnessing has been happening over time. That revolution, counter-revolution, has really been quite continuous. From the Industrial Revolution, the Industrial Revolution had the Luddites. We've got people now who are terrified that 5G towers will poison their children. There's always a counter to some of these things. And I think as well to Ken's point about the human element, that the future of technology is, I think it's interesting to say everyone should have a robot. That'd be nice, I'd like a few. I've got a few jobs. But I think it's perhaps limited. I think technology won't just be a tool to extend and support human performance. I think it will be a colleague. And I think that's a much more interesting space to be in. We know we learn from our colleagues, we know we learn from other people, we're connected to other people. What happens when some of those colleagues are algorithms, are AI, and the repositories of knowledge in an organisation? I don't have the answers to those questions, but I think they're really, really interesting ones. And probably the last bit, the statistics you have at the end always really fascinate me. They're very contradictory. I think 40% jobs replace. Some people debate that or not. I think what will also be the case is there will be some jobs replaced, but there will be other jobs fundamentally changed, or elements of jobs fundamentally changed. It's been an interesting change in those discourses, because originally it was, well, automation is really about manufacturing, it's about the mundane, anything that an Excel spreadsheet could do, let's get that out of the way. I think what's interesting is people are now, certainly in my field, starting to look at the professions, which we sort of thought was safe. And by professions, I mean, you've been to uni, you've got a degree, you've become accredited in something, medicine, law, accounting, engineering, architecture, things like that. And what we're now finding is these are the jobs that are starting to become much more affected. In the accounting profession, a lot of things, particularly in audit, are starting to be automated. In the legal profession, a lot of the discovery work is starting to be automated, which also affects things like entry-level jobs. How do you learn how to be in a profession? What's the starting point to learn from? So from a learning point of view, it's extremely disruptive to the way that we've usually done things. It could be quite exciting, but for a lot of people it's going to be quite scary.
If these revolutions are in fact indeed abrupt, what are the challenges for an organisation that has to lead change within itself?
I'll come back to the organisation part of it. I think thinking about automation, I find the Gartner framework very useful when we think of sensing, deciding, acting, and learning as the dimensions of automation. You talk about whether or not it's abrupt, and Amanda saying that it doesn't have to be abrupt, and I think what we're experiencing is that it's patchy. So in some places it's phenomenal. If you think of Google's search capability, it's mind-blowing. And I see the power of the connectedness when it comes to connected information networks. Because if you think of the sensing part of the Gartner framework, sensing, deciding, acting, and learning, with that connectivity comes phenomenal growth in connected data, which means that sensing accelerates rapidly, and companies, organizations that are good at managing the vast data sets that come with that are accelerating their progress. Deciding is interesting because they're also, the companies that are succeeding are able to process a portion of that massively growing data set. And then when it comes to acting, we're quite a long way off seeing robots play tennis, aren't we? I think some of us have seen examples of the robot football World Cup, and it's quite slow. Spectator sport. And so when we see the patchy progress, it makes me think of the two focal areas for us, one being the boundaries between what the machines can do and the interaction with us as humans and where we need to guide them. And so I think boundaries and transition are the two themes that we need to get our heads around. With the boundaries, what robotic process automation is successfully doing is saying, if we don't have to, if the action we're going to take is inside the machine, well then it's not too far away. So we can use the connected data, we can make decisions guided by a person, and then we can repeat those many times easily because the action is just a manipulation of information of some description. With driverless cars, there are some experiments in China now working on the roads to help with the cars. So if you set up your roads such that they give the signals that the cars need, you create a safer environment for driverless cars. Working on those boundaries is going to accelerate progress. And where we've defined the human-machine boundary, I think in our organizations we'll find we can accelerate more rapidly. So acceleration is one part of working with the boundary, but the other part of it is minimizing the risk. And we've heard the example of get the supercomputer to solve the problem of cancer. And there is a solution to it, and it's relatively simple.